Water bottles versus water bladders. This is an age-old debate for hiking and backpacking. And today we're going to get into which one is better and which one is better for you more specifically. So in this video, I've used both, first of all, water bladders and water bottles extensively for hiking and backpacking. And so in this video I'm going to give you 7 reasons why you might want to go with water bottles for your hike or backpacking trip, and then 7 reasons why you might want to use a water bladder instead. So I'm hoping by the end of this video you'll have a really good sense of what's going to work better for you, given how you like to hike and given the type of trips that you like to go on, the type of conditions that you're dealing with. So that's what we're going to jump into, and let's get started. We'll start with the water bottle, and then I'll go over to the water bladder one next. So reason 1 why you might want to do water bottles specifically instead of the hydration bladder for your hike is that you can do like electrolyte drinks in them. You can like put Gatorade or Propel like powder packets in things like this and mix it up. And electrolyte imbalance is something that if you're going on a hike where it's really hot, or you're going on like a long hike where you're taking in a lot of water, that can be something to think about. Are you keeping your electrolytes balanced? And one good way to help you do that is to use Gatorade or something. And if I'm going on a long trip, or if I know it's going to be really hot, I like to take those little like packets of Gatorade or Propel and then just mix it in one of my water bottles and then drink it out that way. I would never put like Gatorade or something like that in a hydration bladder. I suppose technically you could do that, but these are kind of hard to clean. And so I would tend to only do that in a water bottle personally. So reason number 2 why you might want to go with water bottles is it makes it a lot easier because these are transparent and they're strapped to the outside of your backpack. It makes it a lot easier to track how much water you've taken in so far, and also how much water you have left. So that's important for 2 reasons. First of all, it's important to know how much you've taken in because that can help you kind of monitor whether or not you're staying hydrated and drinking enough water. And then on the other hand, it can help you see how much water you have left, right? And so if you don't know where your next water source is going to be, or you know it's going to be a while until you get to the next water access point, then it can be really helpful to know how much you have left, right? Okay, so number 3 is if you have water bottles, if you use kind of water bottles for hiking, it can make it a lot easier to share water, at least in a sanitary way, right? So I used to go on these backpacking trips, and one thing that we would do, I guess I still sometimes go on backpacking trips, but we used to do this specific thing in backpacking trips I used to go on. And what we would do is we would take 2 water bottles, and one of the water bottles was designated as group water, and the other water bottle was the bottle that you drank out of. And so with our group of people, we always knew that the one bottle that's group water, that could be used for cooking, or if somebody else runs out of water, you could use that to replenish theirs. And that way you're not like giving them water that's out of a bottle that you've been drinking out of. You keep one clean for group water, and then the other one you use for your own drinking. And so that's one nice thing that using bottles kind of allows you to do in a better way, is how you share water. And then refilling, that's another thing. So this is point 4 for the water bottles. It's a lot easier to refill these, in my opinion, and part of the reason for that is doing the whole taking the bladder in and out of a backpack can be a bit time consuming and tricky. It depends a little bit on your backpack, but with the backpack I use, it kind of takes a little bit of doing to get this in and out, whereas water bottles are just a lot easier to refill. And then number 5, another reason for the water bottles, is if you have used water bladders or you've thought about using water bladders, one thing you might have worried about is like getting a puncture in the pouch. I've never had any problems with that. I've never gotten a puncture in my water bladder. Part of the reason for that is it's kind of tucked away safely inside the backpack, is kind of where most backpacks that have a designated place for it, they put it someplace safe so it's not going to get in trouble. But that could happen, and if you look at a water bladder versus a water bottle, you can see like, okay, like this is much more likely to get a puncture in it than something that's hard plastic like this, right? So that's number 5. And then number 6 for the water bottles is basically just ease of cleaning. This bottle is far more easy to clean than this bladder is. So with a water bladder, it's more difficult to clean them out, and you have to get them really dry as well, or else you can get like actually mold growing in the tubes especially, and you don't want that, right? And so it's just a lot easier to clean bottles out. than it is to clean the hydration bladder out. All right, number 7. So this is the final reason now for bottles over bladders, in my opinion, or over water reservoirs, as some people call them. Number 7 is basically temperatures. And there's 2 things I want to point out here. Is extreme temperatures is really what I'm talking about. So for a water bottle, if I'm going to be in like really hot conditions, if I'm hiking in hot weather, there's an annoying thing that a water bladder does that can be really irritating when you're on the trail, and that is in the tube there's water that's sitting outside here, and because it's kind of separated in this transparent tube, and part of this is usually going to be outside of your bag, it can make the water quite warm, like really warm, and then when you take the first drink out of it after you haven't had any drinks recently, it's like really warm. More so, like your water in your water bottles can get kind of warm too, but it can get actually kind of hot in this hose here. So that's something to keep in mind. And then on the other temperature extreme, if it's like freezing weather and you're going on a trip, then you're gonna have a lot better luck dealing with like partially frozen water in a water bottle like this than in a water bladder. I don't think I've ever had a situation where I've been on a trip in freezing conditions with a water bladder. But I mean, it doesn't take much to imagine that, you know, you have an ice block in this. It's gonna be, you're gonna have more risk of puncturing it, first of all, because it's like hard ice against this thinner material. And then in addition to that, like if I'm on a trip where it's really cold out and I have a bottle like this, I can kind of like hit it against something a little bit to try to break up the ice. And so I might be able to get a little bit more water out that way. And so I would just personally feel more comfortable in extreme temperatures using a water bottle versus a bladder. All right, so now let's talk about bladders. What are seven reasons you might want to use a bladder instead of a bottle? And the first one, and probably the most important one, is that if you have trouble keeping hydrated when you go on hikes, then bladder is probably the #1 thing that you can do to correct that. Just by having this hose on your back, like when you have your backpack on, and having this readily accessible, it makes you hydrate a lot more. At least that's my experience. Like I stay way better hydrated when I'm hiking and I have a water bladder, just because it's like so easy to just grab it, and I don't have to like reach back, pull the thing back, undo the cap, drink it. Just that like little reduction in the amount of effort that it takes just helps you stay hydrated more. So that's #1. #2 is kind of goes along with it, and it's just that it's easier to reach. This is more important for certain backpacks compared to others. So if you have a backpack where the water bottle is like, it's called cantered, which means it's like out on your side and it's pointed towards you, which makes it easier to pull out. If you have a cantered water bottle holder on your backpack, then this won't be as much of an issue for you. But if your water bottle is hard to get to on your backpack and you don't have those nice, easy to get to pockets, and you have to either take the backpack off or just like reach really uncomfortably to get the water bottle, then you know, you've got an advantage of having a hydration bladder where the hose is just right there available at all times, basically. #3 is that water bladders can be a good way to just carry more water, okay? And so this is a 2-liter bladder, all right? Which means it's about 70 ounces, which means it carries equal to or more than basically 2 full-size Nalgene bottles, like your standard big 32-ounce Nalgene bottles. This is actually a Camelback, but you get the idea. So in this bladder, I can carry the same amount or even a little bit more water than 2 typical 32-ounce water bottles. So if you need to carry more water, then having a hydration bladder can help you do that. They actually make them in bigger sizes too, so you can get a 3-liter water bladder, which is, oh man, what's the math on that? That'd be like 100, the low hundreds in ounces. And so that's a lot of water. If you need to carry a lot of water, then hydration bladder is definitely something to think about. And then another thing that's kind of a little bit similar, but also in some ways a little different, is you don't have to refill this as frequently. And part of the difference, the distinction here is you can go with just one bladder versus needing like multiple bottles. And so you don't need to refill your one bladder as often as you would need to fill like one or the other of your bottles. Hopefully that makes sense. And then number 5 is the kind of similar to the number 5 on the bottles, but in reverse. So I'll explain what I mean here. So whereas with the bladder you might worry about like puncturing the reservoir here, with a bottle you're taking it in and out more. And so if you're hiking in a place that has like granite rock or like kind of pointy rocks around and you're a bit clumsy, you might have some concerns about breaking a water bottle or dropping and breaking a water bottle. To me, this is less of a concern than puncturing thin material like this, because I mean, I've let these things roll around on the ground. You probably can't see it, but it has like scratches all over it, and it's not broken. So it could happen, but I think it's a little bit less of a risk in my mind. But if you go on lots of hikes with pointy rocks and you're kind of clumsy, then actually a bladder might be better for you. Number 6 kind of has to do with how these things pack. So with a water bottle, whether it's full of water or whether it has no water in it at all, it takes up the same amount of volume on your pack, right? And so if you're putting this like inside of a backpack, then that can become kind of an issue because you're not saving any weight even if this thing is empty. So then maybe you clip it on the outside and you've got it like bouncing around something. You might try to put a hack in to try to fix it. But with a bladder it's kind of nice because as you drink your water it gets smaller and smaller. And in addition, I think in some ways the design of a water bladder is kind of easier to pack because it doesn't have like hard sidewalls. And so you can kind of like manipulate it a little bit more to get it packed nicely in the pack. And then number 7 is when you put it in a backpack. I'll just grab a backpack up here to kind of tell you what I mean. When you have a hydration bladder in a backpack, it kind of goes, often it'll go like right behind your back. And so benefit number 7 of a hydration bladder is it can kind of serve as an additional cushion on your back, which can actually make your backpack more comfortable, which is nice. And then also, if you have like 2 different sizes, I usually use 2 different sizes of water bottle. This can, if they're both full, this can make your weight distribution in your bag a little bit uneven unless you redistribute other things within the bag. And so having a water bladder can keep the weight more even, and it can also give you some extra padding on your back compared to using a water bottle. So that's the 7th benefit of the hydration bladder. I mentioned this at the beginning, but I've used both, and I frankly like both methods. And I think it just kind of depends on the type of hike that I'm going to be doing, and kind of the situation that I'm in will kind of determine which one I choose. And I will also say, I think this is important to note, that one thing I have done, and a setup that I really like, is if I know I'm going to be hiking a lot and I want to be well prepared, I might take a bladder and I might also take a small water bottle. So this is a 20 ounce, I think 17 ounce water bottle. And having a combination of a small water bottle and a water bladder is great to me because you get the benefits of having the extra water and staying hydrated by putting this like easily available. But then with a smaller bottle like this, then you kind of deal with some of the other challenges that a water bladder has. Like I would mix my Gatorade in here and use it for other things like that. So that's kind of how I like to think about it. Hopefully you found this helpful. Hopefully you have some reasons that you can use to kind of figure out, okay, should I go bottles or should I go water bladders? And so if you found this video helpful, we have more gear reviews on our channel. We have a whole playlist dedicated to it. And we also have videos that are like this about hiking and camping on our channel every week. So I'd invite you to subscribe, like this video, join us back here for the next one. Thanks.